welcome to the 2021-22 Premier League predictions from yours truly. I'm coming off the back of one of my better predictions, I think, ever on the back of last season, so I'm trying to maintain that level this year as well, although it could be tough. Still a lot of question marks as we are about to start the Premier League season. I can't believe it. Feels like it's gone so quickly. I'm sure the Euros had a little bit, and the Copa America, to do with that. And the Olympics, like, we really have not had that much lack of football in recent times, so bring it on, lads. Let's go. As we always do, I'm going to start on the bottom and I'm going to work my way up to the top. So starting from 20th all the way to 1st, where we will predict who's going to be going down, and then all the way up to the top to say who will win the Premier League title. Starting things off today with Brentford in 20th place. Yes, I'm going to have one of the recently promoted teams finishing bottom. However, Brentford, this is something that I feel like you should know if you are a Brentford fan. I have currently got a bit of a track record of whoever I put in 20th, they do amazing, okay? I put Sheffield United in 20th, I think, 2 years ago, and they almost finished in the top 10. And I think the year before that, I put Burnley, maybe not 20th, but I think in the relegation zone, and they also had a great season. So don't feel too bad. I bet you one of these relegation teams that I'm about to announce is going to have a belter of a year. But Brentford play a pretty front foot style, version of football. They're very versatile with the formations that they played in the championship. They played a 4-3-3, a 3-4-3, and even a 3-5-2. So they're very flexible, and I'm sure that they'll resort to a bit of a more defensive structure going into the Premier League this year. They do like to play, though, however, a punchy style of football. Ivan Toney was great in the championship, and as a as a Newcastle man, him being a former Newcastle player, it's annoying because we're going to see a lot of Newcastle players that we let go come back and maybe do quite well for teams. But will he do it in the Premier League? I think their season really comes down to him quite a fair bit. Will he end up being great, or will he be like a Tammy Abraham kind of story like Aston Villa a few years ago? In 19th place, I'm going to go with Norwich City. Now, obviously, this team won the championship last season, but they also won the championship, I think, 3 years ago when they came up to the Premier League, and they finished 20th that season as well. So they finished first, finished 20th, finished first last year. Are they going to now finish 20th again? I think this time they'll go one better. They've lost Emi Buendia, who I think is honestly a very underrated player. If he was playing for a bigger team, I think he would have a lot of eyes on him. But not super sure of Norwich's ability to survive this Premier League season. In 18th place, I'm going to go with Burnley. And yeah, I feel like I've put certain teams in the relegation zone over the last couple of years, and they've always managed to survive. And out of all those teams, I just get the feeling Burnley maybe this is the time. I don't know how much longer they can keep shithousing balls up the Chris Wood and getting away with it. Their starting 11 clearly is robust. It's just the depth and the lack of direct attacking players, which I know there are some Burnley fans that are crying out for that, and some that are just, no, it's full Brexit till I die. If they struggle early too, by the way, Sean Dyche is actually in the last 12 months of his contract. So there's a possibility, I know it'd be wild to even consider it, that maybe if they don't do well, if they look like they could be getting relegated, Dyche could be let go from Burnley, which would, I mean, that would be insane because he's probably been at the helm for what feels like 10 years now. But that is a possibility, so keep your eyes peeled on if that happens. But yeah, I get the feeling that this could be the time for Burnley. I mean, only time will tell. But yeah, they're my three teams to go down. In 17th place, we're going to go with Watford. Now, obviously, Xisco was a very surprising addition to take over as manager, but he has actually got Watford back up and playing brilliantly. He's clearly been able to convince the Watford higher-ups, despite only being in the job for about half a year, that he is the man to take them forward in the Premier League. And fair enough, he's won 17 out of 24 games in the championship. And that's not even the craziest stat. In 24 games, they've only conceded 13 goals. That is wild. Coming up with amazing form, despite a lack of really big transfers and losing a few players, I think they will just avoid the drop this season. In 16th is Southampton, and obviously when we talk Southampton, there's a very big talking point indeed with Danny Ings leaving, and really his presence in the last 3 years is almost single-handedly what has been able to at least be the difference between them staying up and going down. They're replacing him with Adam Armstrong, again, another former Newcastle striker who he let go, did great in the championship, and now he's up in the Premier League. And I just wonder, even though I don't think Adam Armstrong is going to be bad by any stretch of the imagination, I'm not sure if he can immediately come in and have the same sort of presence that Danny Ings had in that club. I mean, he's going to be a mini Danny Ings at start. Maybe he'd eventually become a player of his quality, but I I don't know. I'm nervous for... I don't think they can rely on Adam Armstrong to get those goals that they would have relied on Danny Ings for. That and the fact that they've been shocking, especially since Christmas. I'd be nervous for them. They only managed one win in, I think, their last 11 Premier League games. We'll see if that form follows them into this season. In 15th place, I'm going to go with Crystal Palace, and obviously a very interesting season for Palace, since clearly this is going to be their first season without Big Boy. Roy Hodgson is gone now, he's obviously moved on, and they've replaced him with Patrick Vieira, who, I don't know if he's a good, bad, terrible manager, but it seems like he's a little bit... I was going to say inexperienced, but then again, Cisco didn't have a super amount of experience. He's got Watford ticking. But Vieira's only really managed, like, New York City FC and OG Nice for a little bit. And, like, that's not terrible, but I wonder. And the fact that he is obviously a Premier League legend and did incredibly with Arsenal will surely command respect amongst a Premier League team. But, like, I don't know. I've got my doubts about Crystal Palace yet. For some reason, I've got them 15th. Looking back, I'd almost probably put them a bit lower and maybe pump up Watford a bit, but I'm going to keep them where they are. In 14th place, I'm going to go with Brighton, the expected goals merchants themselves. Quiet transfer window. They've really only picked up one guy of significance with Mwepu, I think is his name. I can't lie. I've never seen him in my life, but he's a box-to-box midfielder. And if he ends up being a Basuma 2.0, they could have a very tough, smothering midfield amongst them. They always tend to finish just above the relegation zone, like 15th, 16th, but played some pretty good football toward the end of last season. I mean, at least for a player or for a club of their ability. So I feel like a 14th place finish is in the realm of possibility. I think they need to strengthen their wide players a little bit more. Like, they've fullbacks and wingers, they don't really have a lot of class players in those areas, apart from like Tariq Lamptey, and he's coming off of an injury. So I don't know, but I still think Brighton will manage to stay up and they'll finish about 14th. In 13th, I'm going to go with Newcastle United. Now, Newcastle, there is not really been a super amount of movement transfer-wise. A lot of clubs have not really been super busy with transfers, but there is a chance, and a very strong chance, that they are going to re-sign Joe Willock, which obviously he was incredible toward the end of last season. And really, Newcastle in general played amazingly to finish the 2019 or the 2020-2021 season. Newcastle lost Callum Wilson and Alan Saint-Maximin through injury, and when they came back, they pretty well came back at the same time, and it was almost like a completely different team how well they were playing with just those two in the unit. If they do re-sign Joe Willock and they can keep playing that brand of football in the way that they were playing football in the Premier League toward the end of last season, if they can continue that on this season, there is very well a chance, and if everyone stays fit, Newcastle could crack top 10. I'm actually, for the first time, kind of sort of optimistic for Newcastle's season. Then again, consistency is an issue, inevitable injuries is an issue, and Steve Bruce. So, I'm probably just for that going to put them in 13th. In 12th place, we're going to go with Leeds United, and maybe I'm assuming some of you thought that Leeds would be a bit higher. But yeah, obviously Leeds, again, I think I think it's a fair enough statement to say that they definitely overperformed last season. A lot of hype coming up, obviously, from the Championship, first Premier League season in absolute eons, that murder ball approach to football under Bielsa, They're definitely burning, the candle at both ends, I feel like, and I just wonder how long that lasts. The vibe I get from Bielsa is a little bit like Mourinho vibes, like his approach will, get players on board, it'll work them to the bone, but I feel like over time, if he stays like that, I don't know, I get the feeling that he could be one of those managers that loses their players over a certain amount of time. And I'm really not sure if we can rely on Leeds, like certain players like Patrick Bamford and whatnot, to overperform again in the crazy way that they did last season. Still got amazing players though, like Junior Firpo, who they've brought in, Rafinha, Calvin Phillips, who did brilliantly for England. I mean, quality in there. So definitely a mid-table team, and I'm going to put them in 12th. In 11th place, we're going to go with Wolverhampton Wanderers. Now, they lost Nuno, obviously their manager, that brought this Portuguese culture to Wolverhampton Wanderers. And look, and on top of that, the injury to Jimenez, that is what really, I think, derailed their season. But with him coming back, even if he's not going to maybe be the exact same player that he was, I still think that they'll find their feet again. Only came 13th, really, all things considered, and it felt like they were having a pretty shocking season. So if they can get back on track, I don't see why they can't improve at least 2 positions in the Premier League table. So, so I've got them in 11th currently. I feel like Trincao, loaned in from Barcelona, even though he's not really had much opportunity to show what he's got at Barcelona. I think at a club like Wolves, you could expect to see Trincao be very, very good. And if Jimenez comes back and he's, playing just the way he was prior to his injury, then expect Wolves to maybe even try to push it to getting up into the top 10. But in 10th place, as we now talk about the top 10 teams, I'm going to start with West Ham. They are definitely a top 10 team, but let's be honest, they definitely as well overperformed like a few other teams last season. We know that they did. This is still a David Moyes team. Lingard is gone as well, and he provided such an amazing boost for them halfway into the season. Plus, being back in Europe now as well is really going to test the depth of this squad as well, which I feel like in certain areas, especially up top, it lacks a little bit. Still an incredibly decent core of Rice and Souček, so I definitely expect them to still finish top 10, but expect a bit of a slide, and I feel like it's only natural. So West Ham I'm going to put in 10th. 9th place I'm going with Aston Villa. Yeah, so I'm expecting relatively decent things from Aston Villa this year, despite the fact they're losing Jack Grealish. I think losing him is a miss, but I also think that they should be okay without him, because they're not really losing a super amount of goals or assists with Jack Grealish. They're just losing like a bit of a spirit and presence that sort of like was a very special, like a vibe, like an Aston Villa vibe, if you know what I mean. Like the boy that's been with the club for so long. And yeah, I feel like that's all they're losing. Because really, Jack Grealish, he provided 15 or less goals and assists to their Premier League campaign. Like that's not a super amount. And with other signings that they've made, like Leon Bailey, I feel like he can definitely make that up. And they've got a fairly decent start of the Premier League season, at least the first 3-4 games. So if they start off positively, they should hopefully refine that spirit, or lack of a better word, Plus they're pretty young squad, which is only just improving. I think Aston Villa can crack into the top 10, and I'm going to put them in 9th place. In 8th place, however, I'm going to go with Everton. Everton in 8th, I feel like is quite high. Even me sitting here now, I'm nervous putting them this high. Their squad is made up of a lot of very expensive transfers that have all turned out to be relatively average. And I feel like that's pretty fair enough. Rafa Benitez, I think, being back as well is very interesting. It's very interesting. I mean, I clearly, being a Newcastle fan, love Rafa Benitez for what he did for Newcastle. I really think he was, he was great for a club like us. But I feel like Everton's fans are not going to be so welcoming of him. He will shore them up defensively, but they won't play the most free-flowing attacking football, and the fact that he's a former Liverpool manager is going to work against him as well. So his style of play I don't think is going to go down very well with Everton fans, but I think it'll guarantee results. Yeah, we'll see. I really hope they don't completely disrespect Rafa, but I feel like Rafa's in for, even if Everton do finish in 8th, that's not too bad for this Everton squad. I feel like Rafa's still going to have a tough time this season with the fans. I think they're just going to give him a bit of shit, which is frustrating. In 7th place, though, either way, we're going to move on. Leicester City just missed out on Champions League last season by the barest of margins. It's very unfortunate. Vardy's getting a little bit older now. You can't really rely on his goals as much, I don't think, at this stage of his career. Iheanacho is obviously great. I don't know if he's going to be able to replace and be the type of presence that Jamie Vardy was for this Leicester City team, though. And their squad is still very good, fairly young outside of just those players. And last season, they did great. I wouldn't say that they ridiculously, crazily overperformed, because I do feel like Leicester are now a team that you are expecting to see finish just on the fringes of Europe or just inside European places. But I am not sure if they're going to be able to repeat the successes that they had last season. So 7th place for Leicester. In 6th place, I'm going to go with Arsenal. Now, I know that they have had a very tough time in the last year or two in their slide. They finished 8th in the last 2 Premier League seasons, which for a club like Arsenal is just not good enough. No European football though, however, and very, very, very little expectation on this Arsenal team could work out to be a bit of a blessing. They actually had a pretty strong finish to the Premier League last season. In fact, I think they won their last 5 games in a row, could even be 6. Brought in some younger players as well. They aren't relying on super senior players either in the team, so there's a lot of growth to be had in this Arsenal side. And I get the feeling that, like, Mikel Arteta, even if he doesn't see out his, tenure of the next 2-3 years, he's going to be the guy that's given a lot of players that I think could be really, really good key Arsenal players going forward for many, many years, like Smith Rowe and Saka, their starts. And I feel like that's going to be big. Because this really is, especially for one of those, the redemption season. This is the Bukayo Saka redemption season. After bottling his penalty and losing England its first chance at a title in 66 years and having a cop all that vile racist abuse from England fans as well, I think he's going to bounce back this year, and he's going to be so driven and so motivated. I think he wins Young Player of the Season. I'm just calling that one now. In 5th place, I will go with Tottenham, and even though they have had an absolute disaster of a pre-season and the looming cloud of Harry Kane potentially fucking off and going to Manchester City, I'm still going to put them in 5th because I'm assuming that Harry Kane stays. At least for this season, I'm under the impression that Harry Kane stays. And yes, the whole debacle of them not really being able to find a manager in appropriate time is not great, but don't knock Nuno because he is a quality manager, we know. If Kane stays, I get the feeling that eventually in time, things will be smoothed out and they will be able to fight for Champions League. They have made some nice additions, some okay additions as well, but Romero I think was probably the biggest one. He is one of the best defenders, or was one of the best defenders in Serie A last season, a league which is known for very good, very experienced centre-backs. So I think you can watch him to definitely be quite a good player for them in the future. But yes, now the top 4, and it's going to be the same top 4 that I predicted last season, the same 4 teams, but who is going to finish where? Well, in 4th place is going to be Liverpool, and it's been so tough for me to specifically work out where these 4 teams are going to finish. I'm fairly confident in these 4 teams being the top 4, but where they finish, it's so up in the air. Liverpool are going to get Van Dijk back, even if he won't be the same player that he was prior to his injury. Even a Van Dijk at 80%, 90%, still world-class player. So a huge player to get back. Their front 3, of course, has seen better days of Salah, Mane, and Firmino, but I feel like even though they're maybe not as strong enough, they're not strong enough to fire them to a title, I think, this season, it'll still comfortably keep them top 4. And with no, real transfers, I do see them falling behind these 3. In 3rd place is Manchester United. Now, I see Manchester United as a team that could definitely win the Premier League, but one thing I think they don't have under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and really haven't had for the last many seasons really, is just the consistency. I think they're more likely, honestly, to win a Champions League than they are to win a Premier League. I feel like they could do it over 13 games, but not super sure about 38 games. Sancho, I think, will do quite a lot for them. I think he could maybe be the transfer of the season. It depends though. It's just, I think it's big for United having finally an actual proper right winger, right midfielder of serious quality going down that side. I think it's going to do a lot for them. Varane clearly is obviously a huge addition. It's wild that Manchester United have been able to get both Sancho and Varane in the same transfer window. It's amazing business. They're going for it. But I think they're still probably going to finish in 3rd. In 2nd place now, the final 2, and the runners-up for the Premier League this season is going to be Chelsea. Chelsea, I think, are going to be the big improvers this season. They have got a lot of momentum. They are the European champions. They're signing Lukaku, who's going to be great, but at this point, he's like that toxic ex that you just can't stop going back to. This is going to be his 3rd stint back at Chelsea. But obviously, this is Lukaku at arguably the peak of his powers with Premier League experience. I get the feeling he's going to be great. And to be fair, Chelsea, if you look back in the past, when they've won their last couple of Premier League titles, it's come off of the back of them making a very big, successful striker signing like, for example, Diego Costa. That and the fact that defensively they're sound. 11 clean sheets in 19 games is so impressive. Since Tuchel took over, but I just think I'm probably going to put them in 2nd, underneath none other than Manchester City. I am putting them in top spot without them having made the move for Harry Kane. Yes, I'm fully aware of that. If they had Harry Kane, this decision would be so much easier, but I'm still going to put them in 1st place anyway. They did add Jack Grealish, and I think he's going to be a great player for them. I don't know if he's going to completely take over that team and take it to another level though. I think he's a great addition for a crazy amount of money. I think he's honestly just a £50 million player that they've paid £100 million for due to hype and the English tax, of course. That's just my opinion. Diaz, though, Laporte and Stones, it's a seriously strong defense as well. And again, this team is just, again, fully capable of doing what they did last season. Just going on a crazy-ass win streak, like 20 games in a row, I think something is what they won. And it took people so long to realize, wait a minute, holy crap, this Man City team just clicked a gear, and none of us really even knew until they were like 10-something wins in. Also, I think the pain of losing a Champions League final was going to stay with them, especially at the start of the year, although that could also work against them, because it could mean that maybe instead of focusing all their efforts into the Premier League, they really prioritize Champions League this year. I'm not sure on that one, but I get the feeling that there'll be a fire in the belly, and I feel like Pep Guardiola definitely learned a lot of lessons from that Champions League final. They went back-to-back in 2018 and 2019. They let 2020 fall to Liverpool, but I get the feeling that they're going to go back-to-back again in 2021 and in 2022. Manchester City, again, to be your Premier League champions. That is my prediction for this season. Let me have it then, lads. Come on, tell me. How big a fraud of a football fan am I? Should I just stop watching football now? Am I allowed to watch a little bit more of the Premier League season to sort of see how my predictions are going? Or is that it for me? Am I just a fraud? I actually don't feel too bad about these picks, to be honest with you. It's the top four for me that I'm just like, I have no idea. I think of all of those teams in the top four, all of them could win the Premier League. It is definitely possible. But I put a lot of thought specifically into those four. That's what I've got. You just let me know what you think in the comments down below. Tell me who you think is going to win the Premier League, who you think is getting relegated, who the big surprise is going to be. Maybe one last thing I will do really quickly is I'll give you certain other things. I think the Golden Boot is going to go to Harry Kane if he stays at Tottenham. If he goes to Manchester City, I don't think he actually wins the Golden Boot. I think he drops a little bit deeper under Pep Guardiola, facilitates his wingers a little bit more. So yeah, if Kane goes to Manchester City, I'll give it to Romelu Lukaku of Chelsea. If he stays at Tottenham, I'll give it to Kane. Young player of the season, like I said, I think will be Bukayo Saka for Arsenal this season. The Golden Glove, I'll give to Edison, and this is going to be a huge call here. But I think the player of the season, this Premier League player of the season, I know you're all probably thinking I'm going to say, fucking Bruno Fernandes or Kevin De Bruyne, and I'd probably go with one of those players normally, but I felt like, you know, bugger it, let's go for something unique. I think Kai Havertz could be on for a really big year at Chelsea. I've liked the way that he's played in the last couple of months, and I get the feeling that in that Chelsea team, with them having made some decent improvements, with Lukaku up top, I am expecting decent things from Kai Havertz this season. I don't know why. I don't know if I suddenly think he's now going to be the best player in the Premier League, but just keep your eye on him. I mean, that's just my pick. That's my obscure pick. But cheers again, ladies and gentlemen, for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you are new. And I fucking know that you are new, okay? Only like half of the people that watch these videos are subscribed. So if you're one of those 50%, be sure to click that subscribe button, lads. I'd appreciate the hell out of you. And yeah, thanks for watching. Catch you next time. And bye-bye.